How do you respond to expectations? How easy is it for you to get things done, both the things that are asked of you and the things that you want to achieve yourself? Do you need deadlines or accountability? Or to be left alone to follow your own path and time frame? Where do you find motivation? And how does this all play out in your sewing and creative life? If you've been listening to Check Your Thread for more than 5 minutes, you've probably heard me mention the Four Tendencies framework devised by writer and podcaster Gretchen Rubin. Understanding how we and those around us operate can be so useful in achieving our goals. And for me, understanding the Four Tendencies has been a real game changer. So this week, we're looking at each of the tendencies and talking to a well-known previous Check Your Thread guest about their tendency and how it impacts their crafting. You don't need to have taken the test yourself before listening to this episode, but you might get a bit more out of it if you do. Either way, hopefully this episode will give you some personal insight as well as a bit of a laugh. So stick around a few minutes for this bumper episode. Welcome to Check Your Thread, the podcast that will help you sew more sustainably. My name's Zoe and I'm obsessed with sewing. I've been blogging about it for over 17 years and I'm the creator and host of the popular handmade wardrobe challenge, Me Made Made. But, like many people, I've become increasingly concerned about the climate and ecological crises, and I'm looking at the way that my lifestyle contributes to them. So in this podcast, I'll be nerding out about making clothes whilst exploring how to minimise the negative impact that it may have. I really hope you'll join me in this journey. Hi, lovely one. How are you doing? Excellently, I hope. I am recording this feeling pretty hungover after the Fabric Godmother Summer Staff outing yesterday, which was a lot of fun. Not sure if that was a win because we had a great time or a fail because I feel rough. Anyway, here's a lovely sewing-related sustainability win from Check Your Thread patron Debbie, left in the community chat spaces in the Check Your Thread Patreon. Debbie writes, "So happy. After wardrobe re-evaluation, I had a big pile of mostly me-made clothes that I was ready to part with and invited 3 friends who I thought would enjoy them. I got to see them twirl in me-mades up to 8 years old. 1 or 2 will need a little adjustment. It was so lovely to see the clothes being discovered by someone new. One of them said, 'This will be the dress I wear when I need to feel brave or do hard things.' I forget sometimes how awesome sewing is." That is so lovely. Thank you for sharing that, Debbie. Speaking of patrons, this week I get to thank Paula and Louisa, both of whom kindly signed up to support the podcast via Patreon this week. I'm ever so grateful to you both. If you're interested in helping keep this podcast afloat, please go to patreon.com/checkyourthread to see what's going on over there and sign up for any amount at all. So let's get into this episode because it is the absolute beast of one in terms of length. But I make no apologies for it because it has the potential to help absolutely everyone understand themselves and those around them better. In terms of sewing more sustainably, understanding yourself better and how you usually respond to certain situations, impulses and requests, it might allow you to slow down and pause and avoid making a decision or taking an action that you come to regret. Whether that's making an ill-advised fabric choice because you think you know better, or you agree to shorten the trousers of someone you don't even like, or you're going to stay up way too late just to reach a point in your project that you wanted to get to. Thanks so much to all the patrons who shared their tendency and crafting related experiences through that lens. Thanks also to the awesome return guests for giving me yet more of their precious time to explore this topic with me and spill the beans about how their tendency plays out for them. In the show notes, there's a bunch of links and info, including a great episode of my friend Mark's podcast Undo, all about the Pomodoro productivity method that I mentioned in this episode. Find the show notes to this and every episode at checkyourthread.com. And whilst you're there, if you haven't already, make sure you scroll to the bottom of the homepage and sign up to the free Check Your Thread weekly newsletter. So until next week, take care of yourself and everyone else. Be like Debbie and pass on any handmade clothes that are no longer serving you to your pals. Don't be like me and drink too much, and enjoy. Thank you, Jeanna, so much for joining on the podcast again. You must be one of the most recurring guests so far, I think. So welcome again back to Check Your Thread.
Thank you, Zoe. Yeah, it's been, I don't know how many times I've been on, but I appreciate it. I appreciate this opportunity to come back and talk about something that's totally different than the things that we've talked about before. So
yeah, not mending. No mending chat. Who knew you have another aspect of your personality?
Right? There's something else about me. Although I can't promise it won't be mentioned at all. So.
That's fair. That's fair. Right, so if you wouldn't mind quickly reminding us who you are, where you are, and what fills your days.
Yes, so I am Jeanna Wicker. I am an American, but I currently live in Spain, where I've been for about the past 2.5 years. And what fills my day is recently a lot of Spanish bureaucracy and just like I'm not working right now, paid fashion, but man, my day's busy and full with just like logistics and things like that. So I do manage to fit in walks with my dog and trips to the river and creative stuff as much as I can.
Awesome. So can you remember when you first discovered Gretchen Rubin and the Four Tendencies framework? Because this is something we have discussed before, and I was so excited to discover that you had heard of it and was as obsessed as I am.
Yes, so I do remember when I heard about it. It was like right around the time that her book Better Than Before came out, which I think is like 10 years ago. My husband had heard an interview of her on a podcast he listened to, and it was like right around the time that her own podcast came out. And so my husband and I both read her book Better Than Before, which is about habit change, and I think where she first introduced the idea of the Four Tendencies. And so, yeah, I've kind of been following along with her writing and her podcast, and sort of been really fascinated with her work on this like personality framework for quite a long time.
Yeah. What is it about the Four Tendencies in particular that appeals to you?
So I really like that it's kind of a very concrete way of describing like a certain aspect of a person's personality or how they approach the world. So I guess like for kind of like personal example or application in my life, like it's been really good for like my husband and I to understand we are two different tendencies, and it's been really helpful for us to kind of understand like we're going to approach planning things very differently, because that is something that I really like to do that he is a little bit more reluctant to do. So like that has helped. Just knowing that we approach things differently has really helped us to work together better, just exist together like in a more harmonious way.
Absolutely. Yeah, my husband and I are different tendencies as well, and I swear it saved my marriage. Like, understanding why he does some things the way he does, I swear, has literally saved my marriage.
Yeah. I don't think that is an overstatement. I think that I think my husband and I had been together maybe 3 or 4 years. Like, so we're still like early-ish into our relationship when we learned about this. And yeah, I think it takes away a lot of that, like, I'm right, you're wrong. Why are you doing this crazy way? Like, what sane person would even think like that? It just takes that out. It's just like, okay, this is how you approach it. And yeah, okay, it's not how I might do it, but there's another way.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have let this slip before on a previous episode, but can you please share with us, Jeanna, which tendency are you?
I am an obliger, and that is supposedly the largest of the tendencies.
Yes. So I'm just going to read a little bit about obligers. Maybe some listeners might identify with some of these aspects. So, obligers readily meet outer expectations but struggle to meet inner expectations. They put a high value on meeting commitments to others. I'll do anything for a client/patient/family member. Obligers often require deadlines, oversight, monitoring, and other forms of accountability. They may have trouble setting limits on others' demands. They may be exploited by people who take advantage of them, and because of that, they may feel resentful or fall into obliger rebellion. Obligers may have trouble delegating because they feel that some expectations attach to them personally, and they may have systems of external accountability in order to meet inner expectations. So how accurate does that feel, or what parts of either that or what other things you've read resonate with you the most?
So I feel like I'm a pretty classic example of an obliger. Basically all of that rings true for me.
Yep.
And it really, like, finding out about these yeah, the person to say yes, and then once you start saying yes, then everyone's like, oh, you'd be great for this committee, and this is a natural follow-up on that committee, and then the next thing you know, you're on 8 different committees at work, and it's great. But yeah, so I definitely am a person who the description says you respond readily to outer expectations. If someone says, here's a task to be done, it's just kind of like very natural for me to say, okay, like, let's just get to it. And then the other side of the obliger tendency is to resist doing things for oneself. So anything that I need to do for myself or just on my own, for my own well-being, often gets deprioritized.
So you actually created some whole accountability for yourself, didn't you, by creating the Winter of Care and Repair? Because they were tasks you wanted to do anyway, but by kind of announcing it out, putting it out there, and then later getting people to join in as well, like you created that for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a really good example of, and I wasn't really thinking about it that way at the time when I created Winter of Care and Repair. It was just like, this might be a fun activity for this really dreadful time. But I think that because I put it out there, that as time went by, I realized that I did have that accountability, even though it wasn't like, I wasn't exactly conscious of like, okay, I want to do this mending, so I'm going to make this project that is called Winter of Care and Repair, and people will expect me to do it. But as I went on, I realized that people were sort of following along with it. So I was like, okay, so keep this going, and it's still going.
Indeed. So are there any parts of what you've read about being an obliger that doesn't ring true to you?
No, I don't think so. There is one other little interesting wrinkle to obligers that also does ring true for me, and that is oftentimes obligers will sort of lump their nearest and dearest people into their their obligerness. So things that, for example, my husband might need me to do or that need to be done for him kind of become self obligations. And so I really have to work at that to like try to bump him up the priority list so he's not just on the same lowly tier that I'm on, and make sure that I'm, not doing things for other people that he also needs me to do.
Yeah, that's something that Gretchen Rubin says, isn't it? That often partners don't make good accountability partners, isn't it?
Like, for example, this is not creativity related, but he loves to go cycling. He's like 4 or 5 times a week he's out on his bike. Will I go for a bike ride with him? Not very often. Will I go for a bike ride if I sign up for a group ride? Yes, I will. I think that's an obliger conundrum. It's like how to balance all of those things.
Yeah. So how do you feel about being an obliger? Like, what for you is like the best and the most annoying aspects of being an obliger?
I think that one of the good things about it is because I do tend to be like, I think that I'm a pretty reliable person. I think that because I do tend to say yes to things, I've gotten to have a lot of really cool opportunities and like meet a lot of really cool people. I know that in my previous career, I definitely like got to learn a lot of really cool things that were sort of outside of my day-to-day work and that were really interesting to me. And I don't know that I would have sought out that information on my own. I think the most annoying thing is that like I just chronically don't do things that I want to do for myself. Like I know I should exercise and I'm not great about that, but that's where those classes are signing up for some sort of like external event is the way to get that done.
That's it. You know that about yourself, so you've got those strategies in place. You can deploy them.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the big key things is realizing that and then being strategic about it. But also for me, it's also about balancing, not over obliging myself to things that I want to do, also like keeping enough like sort of space in my life and my schedule that I'm not just wearing myself out because now I'm doing all the things other people want me to do, but I've also signed up for 4 classes or things that are then like filling up space on my calendar. So balance. Kind of.
So we've already talked about the Winter of Care and Repair challenge that you set up, but when it comes to your creative and sewing life, like in what other ways does your tendency show itself?
let's see, but I had a little creative business for a while. This one, I think it started about in 2017, and it sort of was one of those things that sort of came about organically. I had made this thing, and someone was like, "Oh, you should sell those things." And I was like, "I don't know if I want to sell these things." And then I sort of, in a roundabout way, was because I did know that I did have the awareness that if I put myself in a position where I had to like make a bunch of stuff for, external source, I might run the risk of not enjoying sewing and creativity anymore. Like if I had to make only this one kind of widget or whatever, and that was the only thing because someone else was needing me to make those. I worried, and this was even, something that I thought of before I kind of knew about the tendencies, but I did worry about not being able to make things and be creative just for like my own sake and creativity's sake. But I was at a point in my life at this time when I had made this bag that people were like, "You should sell those would sell really well here." And then I got connected with an artist cooperative in the town that I lived in Idaho. And so it was like a kind of a good fit for that time in my life. So I, talk about external accountability. I now had like a retail space. Like I had my own display, my own little booth in this shop that I was responsible for like keeping inventory stocked, and I had to work my shifts there. I really enjoyed that, and something about that is that a really clear benefit about that is I got so much better at sewing. Like just because I had to sew like pretty frequently, and of course I don't have that business anymore, but I definitely like still carry those sewing skills with me. Although I am very wary of how I respond to people asking me if I can mend this thing or make them this thing. Like I, sometimes want to just say yes, but I've sort of learned to recalibrate my responses and not just say yeah because someone else needs it to be done. So.
Oh, well done. So you've learned to kind of almost override like, oh, I know this is coming up. It's coming up. I know how I usually respond and I don't want to this time. I'm going to hold back.
Turns out I can say, no, I'm not going to do that. But here's a way that you might also get what you need done. I can give you information, but I'm not going to do the thing. So.
Yeah, well, that's it, because I know that your tendency, not your tendency, your impulse is often to be like, well, let me show you how. So you're still kind of obliging them in getting that thing fixed, but you're passing on a skill rather than just doing it for them.
Yeah. And that sort of fits in with like what I just kind of, I'm sort of an educator by training and nature. So it does, it sort of fits in with show, don't tell, don't just do it for people. Yeah.
So how does, if it does, being an obliger hinder you in your creative life?
I think the obvious thing is that like if I want to make a thing, or perhaps more commonly if like my husband needs me to make something for him and I'm not super, super excited about it, or I'm sort of like overwhelmed with life at the time, those things kind of go down the priority list. They're the things that get stuck into the bottom of the pile for a long time. Now, if there's a deadline, things will get done.
Alrighty, okay, so if you could swap and be a different tendency, what would you pick?
I have always been super fascinated by questioners.
Ooh.
They're the opposite, right? On the opposite side of the tendency structure to obligers, in that they only will, they respond to inner expectations. So if something makes sense to them, those are the things that they are more likely to respond to. So yeah, it's hard for me to like imagine what that would be like, but I am super fascinated by it.
Oh, that's such an interesting answer. I love that. Okay, so I put this up onto the Check Your Thread Patreon and it got a fantastic amount of response. And I asked some of the patrons to share what their tendency is and how it shows up for them in their creative lives. So I'm just going to read a few quotes for you from other obligers, and I'd love to know if any of this resonates with you or if there's something that's different and you're interested in how that shows up differently. Okay, should we go?
All right, yeah, let's go.
Okay, so Louise says 100% obliger, but you knew that already. Absolutely. I think of all the mending meetups and other meetups that I've scheduled, I think Louise has missed one.
Yes. That
So
makes sense.
Louise says, I follow instructions, always stick to the pattern, and find extra motivation to get a project done when someone has set an Instagram challenge or a mending meetup. I find I procrastinate a lot, especially for things that don't matter to others.
Yeah, that definitely resonates. I know that for me, and I think a lot of people, the mending meetups are a great little like sort of low pressure accountability thing that's also fun and that like will make you make sure that you get something accomplished. So, yeah, a lot of that rings true for me.
So this one is from Yvette. So Yvette says, this one hit hardest in terms of my personal life. Why doesn't everyone do the things they say they're going to do? Like I do. Ugh, so frustrating. Just can't get my head around the fact that people don't care about letting others down, or even that they're actively discouraged from doing something after they've got someone else invested in it. For me, sharing plans with others definitely makes me more likely to do them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I had not thought specifically about this, but that is definitely true, I think. Yeah, because if a plan happens, and if I say I'm going to do something, it's like it's going to happen, like hell or high water. I will be there. And I think, again, now that I sort of know about the tendencies, I may be a little bit less, I don't know, I guess I get why people might cancel or flake out or just decide there's not important, but it is hard to understand how you're gonna say something, that you're gonna do something. Let's like follow through.
Yeah. All right, last one. So this is Deborah. Deborah says, I'm an obliger. I do find it satisfying to follow the rules and stick to a schedule. It just makes things easier. I can see this in all aspects of my life, but interestingly, when we went into lockdown for COVID, I realised I had so many unfinished creative projects, and because all the outside obligations stopped for the kids, I was able to finish them all. I think this is also the reason I signed up for this Patreon, to keep me on track to sew more sustainably so it becomes a habit.
Oh, that's fascinating that Deborah found that once, or she, I guess it maybe found, had the insight that once those external responsibilities were removed, they were able to fit in the personal projects and wishes. I love that also that they join the Patreon and see that as an accountability to kind of keep maybe sharing projects, keep working towards these things that they're wanting to do. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't foresee the Patreon being, I don't want to say used, but I guess used in that way. I guess I kind of saw it more maybe like a kind of support group. But I love that it's fulfilling that role for Deborah. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, and I think that, accountability can look all different ways. It doesn't have to be someone saying, like, I expect you to do this. When are you going to have it done? It can also just be like this community that I'm participating in, that other people are sharing, and I want to share too. I want to kind of participate as well. So I think that, it definitely depends on the person. And I think that we all will kind of find that we have different accountability tools depending on the situation and what we want to do and what's available. Because I think for some people, accountability can kind of sound like this big drag, like I have to have this assignment. But I mean, and some of us do, quite frankly, have to have like the assignment and the task to get it done. But it can also be fun. It can be having a coffee date or a park date or a walk date with a friend, a phone date with a friend where you check in on what have you been working on lately. It can be posting to like message boards like Patreon and using that as kind of a accountability tool to share what you've been working on and see what others have been doing too. So yeah, I think there's just all sorts of different kinds of ways that we can have that accountability, and it might certainly depends on the person. It depends on what you're wanting to do, and it's not going to all look the same for one person or for multiple people.
Oh, I love that insight. Thank you. Yeah, it doesn't have to be this big kind of doom and gloom thing. It can be fun and it can be light. And thank you so much for that reminder. And thank you so much for your insights on the most populous of the tendencies. Thank you so much, Jeanna.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure, Zoe. And I really look forward to kind of hearing, how it resonates with others.
Hi, Kim. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast again. I think you're probably the person that's been on the podcast most at this point, but in case someone is brand new to Check Your Thread, could you please tell us who you are, where you are, and what fills your days?
Great. It's so great to be back. My name is Kim Witten, and I am currently based in Liverpool in the northwest of England, originally from California, hence the accent. And what fills my days? I am doing a lot of business consulting and coaching and helping people think better, simplify their lives inside and out. I often work with crafters and helping them, with their mindset and their projects and various things.
Awesome. So how did you feel when I asked you to come and talk to me about your tendency?
I was curious. I was excited. I was like, ooh, this is a juicy topic. This is going to be good.
Cool.
And yeah, I mean, as my tendency dictates, I had a lot of thoughts and questions about that.
So when did you first learn about the Four Tendencies? Do you remember where you first heard about it?
I don't. I might have had an inkling in my mind, but you were the one that definitely brought it to the fore. And I think it was in one of our early meetings calls where you had identified with your tendency and was sharing what that meant. And then I think after the call, I went and took the quiz.
Cool. Okay, so drum roll. Which tendency are you?
I think we've already hinted at it a bit, but I am the questioner.
Right, okay. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what kind of attributes questioners have, and maybe the listeners might find that they can relate to being this tendency. So questioners, they question all expectations. They meet an expectation only if they believe it's justified. They put a high value on reason, research, and information. They follow the advice of authorities only if they trust their expertise. They follow their own judgment, sometimes when it flies in the face of experts who allegedly know more. Their persistent questioning may make them seem uncooperative or defiant. They hate anything arbitrary, anything like 5 garments into a fitting room. They may dislike being questioned themselves. They consider their actions carefully, so they find it tiresome or even insulting to be asked to justify their decisions. And they may have trouble delegating decision-making because they suspect that others don't have sufficient basis for action. So how accurate does that feel, or what parts of what you've read about questioners resonate with you the most?
Yeah, there are parts that definitely resonate and land, and others that I'm like, oh, maybe for some, definitely not for me.
Okay, interesting. So which ones do you relate to?
Yeah, I won't do something unless I can justify it, unless I have the rationale or have done the research, or basically if it makes sense, right? And that's both internally and externally, right? I have to know why. The bit about the arbitrariness, I won't do something if it's just arbitrary. There's no point to that. I mean, I am capable of having fun and being silly.
Just so you know.
Yeah, there is randomness in my life, but especially when it comes to work or expectations, if it's an arbitrary expectation or if it feels arbitrary because I don't have a justification for it.
Interesting. So what parts of what you've read about your tendency don't ring quite true?
Yeah, the bit about the many questioners disliked being questioned. I love being questioned.
I was going to say, reading that is the thing that struck out to me the most, knowing you, that it's like, no, you relish being questioned.
Yeah.
You take that as an opportunity to get deeper into something.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's more dimensions to all of these things. So,
True, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, these are kind of broad strokes, and there's parts where the broad strokes fit and then but I wonder how true it is here's a question, for other questioners, if they dislike being questioned or not. But
and maybe in what context.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because all this is context dependent, isn't it?
Right. And there was a bit also at the end,
they may have trouble delegating decision making because they suspect others that others don't have sufficient basis for action. That bit.
Yeah, it's the end of that bit. While I also personally disagree with the decision making, because I know that analysis paralysis, as they say, is one of the things of questioners. But I think if you are a decisive person, like I'm quite decisive, that is less so. Now, procrastination is a thing, but the part that really stuck out to me, that sufficient basis for decision, it just reads a little condescending to me, to be honest.
Yeah, my husband is also a questioner, and that's the bit that really didn't ring true. Like, he's very happy for me to take decisions because he trusts my decision-making abilities.
Yeah. There's almost like it assumes a correlation between having the information and knowing better. And that's not always the case. Like sometimes I just want the information because I want the context or I want to make sense of it. And then it's fine. Like, okay, go do the thing. Or, I trust you. Like it's more of a right, I have enough to know that we're on the same page. And now we've reached parity. Let's figure out what we need to do, or you make the decision, or I make the decision. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So how do you feel about being your tendency?
It's fun. I mean, it fits perfectly into what I do as a coach and consultant. And as somebody who spends a lot of time in conversation with people asking questions.
Exactly. You're a professional questioner.
That is very true. And a researcher as well is one of the past roles that I bring into the work I do today and something I've always done. And I've been a researcher and a questioner ever since I was a kid and first learned to talk. I think probably one of the most frequent and earliest words was why. Why are we doing this? Why do I have to? Why not?
Yeah. And the fact that you do research, I think, so naturally, like, for example, you collate all these really interesting resources that you've found and then you put them into your weekly newsletter, and they're always fascinating. But I can imagine that's an awful lot of research to be doing kind of ongoing to have those resources to then share with people.
Yeah, and that's fun for me, where I think for other people, they look at that and that would be a burden or information overload or, whatever. I subscribe to over 300 newsletters.
Whoa, really?
Yeah. So there has to be a way to manage that, and that has to be enjoyable.
Oh.
Yeah, so I was just reading to make this make a little bit more sense. I was just reading What Does It Mean to Be a Questioner from Gretchen Rubin's page. And she says, certain strategies for habit change tend to have a special appeal for questioners. For instance, if you're trying to exercise more, you might, or I guess if you're trying to sew more, that might be a relevant one, craft more, you might design a habit very specifically to suit your particular character and idiosyncrasies. So that's a strategy of distinction, she calls it. I don't know if that's...
So what works for you?
Yeah, so it's like my secondary tendency is to rebel. So I'll often rebel against ways of doing things. And that always starts with questioning of why are we doing it this way? So I'm always looking how can I make this more fun? How can I make this easier? Why are we doing it this way? If I'm going to do this habit, or if I'm going to, do this project or make this into a practice, how am I going to do this in a way that fits into my life and make it make sense? How am I going to read 300 newsletters? How am I going to do this pattern in this, make this garment in this small space and tight deadline, right? So I'm always looking at ways to do things that kind of make sense for me and set up expectations that I can meet, that I want to meet.
So is that something that is enjoyable or annoying about your tendency?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I like it because I'm also really into design and designing things and crafting things in a way. When I've done something in a way that is simplified, slick, and makes sense, it's so gratifying. It's so much fun. So I might, I look at the pattern on the layout guide, and I'm like, okay, they want me to lay out these pieces like this on the fabric. But if I fold why are they doing that at first? Then the little rebel comes along. It's I wonder if there's a more efficient way. And so I might fold the fabric in a gatefold, right? Mm-hmm. And then I get 2 fold lines to work with, right? Or maybe I can do the pieces this way, or, whatever. If I can design that habit or that practice in a way that is better, based on my questioning, that's very gratifying and fun. That's super rewarding. And it usually saves time. I'm doing it because it has a benefit.
Cool. So what is there an annoying aspect to being your tendency?
I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, it's like, when does the thinking turn off? When does the questioning turn off? And sometimes it'd be nice to just get into action, to just do things and not always analyze things. And it can be annoying too, because I notice stuff because I'm always questioning things. Like in films, it's very annoying. It's the first thing is like, oh, why did they lead with that scene? I cannot turn this off when I watch a movie.
So you've got this like kind of constant critic that you can't switch off.
Yeah. It's like, oh, they said something interesting that sounds off. Why did they say that? They're gonna come back to that later. Or they opened with this. I always pay attention to the first scene in a film because that sets up the context. And so I'm like, why did they lead with that? Why is that the first line of dialogue? Remember that, because
okay, I want you out of my head because I don't want to spoil films for myself.
Exactly. Sorry, I've just given this to everybody, and now we can edit this bit out.
So when it comes to your creative / sewing life, in what ways does your tendency show itself? The questioner, tipping rebel.
Yeah, probably the example that comes to mind is when I'm looking at a pattern, and I'm like, what are these marks there for? What do these things do? Why do I need to transfer these marks? Why does that say to do this step before that step?
And you can't just go with it. You need to know before you do it.
I need to know before I do it. And the problem with the rebel side that comes in just says, screw it, I'm going to do it my way. And instead of following the instructions or slowing down to read the instructions, and this is maybe also where the decisiveness comes in, I just decide, oh, that's not important, or I come up with my own sense making of it. This is also where I think patterns, I see ways that people could improve patterns and pattern instructions, and what sorts of little illustrations would make certain steps so much easier. And there's a part of me that wants to like do a deep dive and offer that to the like next version of the pattern.
But that's also your linguistic and your graphic design skills coming through as well, isn't it? Knowledge.
Yeah. So it's like, if there's a gap and I'm not understanding because I've never done something before, I will often overcompensate and think I know, or just dive in. I get to a point where I stop questioning and the rebel comes in, and it's just like, just do it your own way. It'll be fine. And then I learn the hard way.
So this is kind of how it hinders your creative life. How does your tendency help your creative life?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Because I will take the time to question and understand things. Why is it asking for this fabric and not that fabric? Why is this step, why are these seams inset this way, or why is this mark there when it's typically not over, when it's typically somewhere else, whatever. And then because it's the same way in cooking too with recipes. I do the same thing. I get a general understanding, the sense of the thing, because I've answered all the questions in my head about, why they're doing it a certain way. And then I almost don't need to follow the instructions, or I can move faster and without that constant like back and forth. And then it just feels like you're in flow. So and it feels very competent. It feels like I get it. And that I'm moving fast and efficiently and almost with style. That's what flow feels like for me.
Yeah. So you think your tendency helps you get into flow?
Yeah, that's a great way to summarize it. Yeah, I think my tendency helps me get into flow and faster and with more fun.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You're having more fun. Okay, that's cool. Okay, so last question here. If you could swap and be a different tendency, what would you pick?
Well, this goes in two different directions for me.
Okay.
Like the upholder would be good, because then I would follow directions and I would slow down and I would be more accountable to myself and others. And on the flip side, the rebel, if I was like full rebel, maybe there would be a lot of failure in my life, but there would also be a little bit of trouble and probably a lot more adventure.
Right, and you're attracted to that.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay, that's so interesting. Oh, I'm learning about you. So when I put about this post up on the Patreon and asked some other patrons, like, what is your tendency and how does it manifest itself in your creative life? We had quite a few questioners respond, but apparently questioners are the second most populous of the tendencies. So that kind of tracks. So I'm going to just read out a few comments from some other questioners from the Jekyll Patreon. So Steph says, I took the quiz and as expected, I'm 100% questioner or maybe 90% questioner and 10% rebel. So maybe a kindred spirit there with you.
Yeah.
Steph says, I often join in on challenges, like sewing challenges, in my head, meaning it makes no difference to me if anyone else knows I'm doing it. So I don't feel the need to have accountability. I thought that was really interesting.
That is. I relate to that a little bit.
Do you?
Yeah.
Happy to do it, but doesn't need to let anyone know. That's so interesting. And also Steph says, I do like bigger projects with other people, community type things or guild projects, but only if I agree that they are worthwhile. So not by default.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. And my judgment on that is oftentimes I decline doing those things. This is going to sound so obnoxious because I don't think they're worthwhile. It's like,
okay, that's good. That's good. You're protecting your time.
Yeah. It's like I have to justify why I'm doing this in a social way, you know, or in a way that connects me or obligates me, I guess, to be accountable to others.
Sure. Well, Rinka says, I'm a questioner. I love getting stuck into new techniques and learning new skills. I work fastest when I have a reason or deadline for sewing something, but I struggle with buying fabric because I keep trying to find the best piece of fabric for the job. Inevitably, during any project, there will come a time when I question every decision I made about it and I start to resent the project. I thought that was really interesting as well.
Yeah. I think this gets into something, how the other dimensions of personality and ways of being get into this.
Yes, agreed.
If you're a questioner,
it doesn't necessarily mean you're a perfectionist, but if someone's got perfectionist tendencies, maybe they would keep searching for that perfect bit of fabric.
Yeah. You're trying to seek a standard, or you're trying to suss out something in a way that could be endless. And I would imagine too that if you have varying levels of, I guess, inner conviction or self-belief, or maybe you're more collective and less individualistic, then that would end up prolonging the questioning. And I wonder how that intersects as well with like independence.
Yeah, there's so many other aspects to someone's personhood and personality, isn't there? Yeah. Serena writes, I am most definitely a questioner. Rules only make sense if I understand why they are there. In my crafting, but especially sewing life, this leads to an endless series of rabbit holes. I don't mind experimenting, but experiments must be backed by knowledge and research, which takes time. The right fabric, the right interfacing, the right technique. So it's not unusual for involved projects to take a year or more. 75% of the time spent researching and preparing, 20% fitting and sewing, and 5% dwelling on the things I got wrong because I didn't understand the topic sufficiently.
I relate to that last bit a lot.
So Rian says, I exhaust myself with all the questions I have going into a project.
Yeah, I relate.
Yeah. And lastly, Martin says, totally unsurprised to find I'm a questioner. Why would I be anything else? Doesn't everyone want to know all about something in a slightly obsessive way? Why wouldn't you ask questions? And Rinka commented on Martin's comment saying, I love how you respond with questions.
3 of them. 3 out of the 4 statements were questions.
Yeah, I think that was very, very telling.
Extremely. I love it.
Amazing. Okay, well, thank you so much for shedding light on questioner tendency. So we're going to turn the tables now, and you are going to help me kind of divulge the next tendency.
Yes. So, Zoe, which tendency are you?
So I am an upholder. I readily meet outer and inner expectations, which probably makes me really annoying for a lot of people.
How so? Say more.
Yeah, I just think that's probably like, oh, really? Oh, you can do both, can you? Great.
I see. Okay. So upholders readily meet external and internal expectations. They're self-directed, so they can meet deadlines, work on projects, and take the initiative without much supervision. Ooh, nice. They enjoy routine and may have trouble adjusting to a break in routine or sudden scheduling changes. They hate to make mistakes, and because of that, they may become very angry or defensive when you suggest that they've dropped the ball or done something wrong. They put a high value on follow through. Don't tell them you're going to do something and then not do it. They may need to be reminded that, unlike them, others aren't necessarily comforted or energized by getting things done. And they may have trouble delegating responsibilities because they suspect that others aren't dependable.
Ouch. Ouch, ouch, ouch.
That saves me asking what your reaction is.
Okay. So, of the things that I've read about and in those points as well that resonate with me, it's true. I usually have no problems delivering on what others ask of me, and I can usually do everything that I've set up for myself also. Although I do think I tip to obliger because an outer expectation will always trump an inner expectation. But I definitely like to know what is expected of me very clearly. Like, I don't like that to be vague. And I definitely prefer to be self-directed. I like to know what's expected of me, and then I need to be left alone to do it, which is, I think, why I've lasted so long at Fabric Godmother, because that's kind of how it operates there. Like, because I cannot stand to be micromanaged, or kind of even really managed. And I definitely place a high value on follow through. Like, I cannot stand it when somebody says they'll do something but they don't, unless there's like a really valid reason. And I would say that I definitely struggle to delegate. And that's even happened recently this week with decorating our attic, because I just didn't trust my husband to do the cutting in. And also, I am pretty impatient with others. That is definitely a flaw that I have.
Before we get into the parts that you don't identify with, I just want to say that, like, knowing you, I think especially the bit about self-direction, and you've articulated that in a perfect, great way. But I see that as well in you. And
do you?
I'm always amazed by your ability to follow through. Even when you're struggling or lacking motivation,
Yeah.
you find a way to deal with that and to vocalize that, or to, like, I'm on to me. I know what I'm doing. Okay. I need to find a way through. And I think a lot of that, it intersects with discipline. And
Yes, I think that is the word here that's not been said yet, isn't it? It's discipline.
Yeah, and I'm just in awe of your discipline and your and you offer that to others. Like, when I've gotten stuck or skipped a step, you're like, did you go back and read?
Yeah, because I was thinking when you were talking about the question, and there was that one bit where you had a problem recently. I'm like, just read the instructions,
And I did.
and just do them.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah. And I think I grabbed
You're
them.
like, why am I doing it? Like, just do it. And
Yeah.
and
And I did that on the call, and I was reading them, and I don't know if that part was like on the visual or not, but there was like a moment where it was like, oh yeah, I skipped over that part. I
Right.
didn't actually read it. And you were spot on of, like, go be accountable to yourself. Fantastic. So yeah, I think your discipline, your follow through is extremely admirable.
Oh, thank you.
And I channel Zoe when I need that for myself. And all the upholders. So yeah, what parts don't, are there any parts about what you've read about your tendency that don't quite ring
Yes.
true?
Yeah, definitely. I don't know that I fully resonate with the bit about discipline. I don't think I'm super disciplined, nor do I like a rigid routine. I don't think I'm super rigid generally, although maybe my family will disagree. I don't know. And when I do find myself being quite rigid, like, I consciously try and relax it. Like, maybe it is a tendency of mine, but I'm trying to override that. And also, I'm quite good with a sudden change of plan, like that. Yeah, I pivot quite easily. That's something that didn't resonate.
Yeah, and I wonder what they mean by rigid, because you strike me as flexible, and I don't know that rigid in this sense is the opposite of flexible. Or maybe it is. But yeah,
Maybe this is
way.
another one of those things where other aspects of personality kind of meld in and override some sex.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. Is there anything else that doesn't quite land?
No, the rest of it's pretty good.
Cool. How do you feel about being your tendency? What's the best and most annoying aspects of that?
Okay, I actually love being an upholder. I do sometimes struggle with the motivation to do the things that I need to do, but I know that I will always do them. And I will always meet a deadline. Like, I know that I'll get it done, and I don't have to spend a lot of time or energy kind of setting up artificial outside accountability, you know, like, and I don't have to play a lot of mind games with myself to kind of motivate myself to get to do something. Like, I have a couple of tricks that work for me. Like, I find the Pomodoro method really useful, or messaging a friend, often you.
I love it.
And that's normally like only the nudge I need really to get going. And I just love a tick, 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 tick off of my things to do list. So that in itself is a motivator. So I feel like I can rely on myself, and I also like being reliable for others as well. What can cause me discomfort, and also sometimes anger and sadness, I would say, is when others don't meet the high standards that I set for myself and everyone else. And I've actually had to end a couple of friendships previously, especially one I'm thinking of, because they were a rebel, but they didn't know that they were a rebel, and they were always blaming everyone else for their inability to achieve something or anything. And I just couldn't handle it. I just couldn't handle being in that friendship. And I know that sounds really harsh.
I don't know that it does. It's like, it's a mix. It's a mishmash, or like a conflict of expectations.
Yeah, like I have friends that are rebels, but they know that they're rebels, you know, and they almost like find it funny. Like, I have a friend that I remember him saying to me like once, like, I just wish I could eat more porridge in the morning. Like, I wish I could like choose porridge more often as my breakfast. And I was like, that is so within your control. But he kind of, as he was saying it, he knew it was kind of sounded a little bit ridiculous. So I was like, yeah, you get it, you know. So that doesn't annoy me. It's when somebody, like this one particular person, like they were always late, always forgotten something, like, and it was always everyone else's fault, and they never saw that the through line with all these scenarios was them, and I couldn't, and it really spoiled our friendship. And yeah,
well, so there's something there about a lack of awareness, and that's what this model and all of this work and talking helps us do, is have awareness about these things. So it's like, you know, clearly it can go too far, like, especially as a questioner, you know, I can, you know, take it to the ends of the earth, but it sounds like for you, it's like, it helps. I don't know, you put it in your own words, like, how does it help?
Yeah, just there's a clarity, I guess. It's gonna get done. Like, I might suffer, but it's gonna get done.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah, that's such good knowledge to have. Like, when I think for a lot of people, especially if they tend to procrastinate, they don't have that belief of it's going to get done. That's a worry or a fear or a question. You know, is it going to get done? And that starts to drive them. But for you, it's like, no, because I'm going to meet the expectations I always have done. I will do. I will find a way.
Well, that's exactly it. In I've got the next question here is like, how does your tendency help and how does it hinder your life? Like,
yeah.
I would say it hinders in my creative life, because I will definitely get things done, but it's often the expense of other things like sleep, or like if I planned to get a sewing project, to a certain stage before going to bed or something, or I run into difficulties or it just takes longer, like I either stay up to meet that self-imposed deadline and then not get enough sleep, or I'll pack it in and go to bed like a normal person, but I'll just be really disappointed in myself, which, even though it's not my fault. And I don't like having things hanging over me. So, like, I have to make 6 flower girl skirts for my sister-in-law's wedding next month. And past experience shows that I will get those done, but it's really stressing me out having that obligation hanging over me, even though I know I will get it done, but it's still, I can't just let it go and just believe. Even though I know it will happen.
Yeah. That's so interesting. And it also makes me wonder too about, like, with all of these tendencies, what happens when problems arise? Like, how does the tendency deal with, how does the person with this tendency deal with an issue or a problem or something that's like a daunting challenge of sewing 6 flower girl
Yeah,
skirts.
yeah. I think that it's just, with the upholder-ness, I think it's just that dogged, we will do this. We might not be having fun, but we're going to do it.
Right. And is there any other ways that are worth mentioning about how this tendency tends to show up in creativity, sewing, or anything else?
I definitely like to fully understand like the instructions of a sewing pattern, even if I then choose to alter the order of the steps or use a different technique here and there through like my experience of knowing what I prefer. But I hate vague or incomplete instructions. Like I want to know what the expectation is initially, even if I then choose to override it with my own thing. I do love a challenge. Like I do love both an externally set one like the lasso standing, and then I take it very seriously, as listeners might have realised. But I also enjoy like personally set challenges that not even anyone knows about. So like, for example, and I have mentioned this before, like I've set myself the goal of alternating between sewing projects, something that has been sewn from a length of stash fabric, and then I mend something, and then I make something from scraps. Like no one said that. That's not a thing, but I said that for myself, and I try to keep to it. Or I'll challenge myself to use like a certain amount of fabric by the end of the year. Like no one knows about that, and I've got it on my Trello board. But for me, that's just like something like fun, extra to play with. But I know that others don't necessarily find those kind of arbitrary things fun.
Yeah. It's almost like setting some constraints so that you have some things to work with or bump up against. And
I wonder if that's it. If there is constraints is a really good word, and I wonder how each of the tendencies responds to constraints.
Yeah, because creativity needs constraints.
Yeah.
If you just have an open sandbox and it's like, go be creative, that's, go sew something. That's too much openness.
Well, I'm looking forward to speaking to a rebel to see if that's true with them, and if they're like, no.
Yeah. How do they get stuff done?
That's a question that I will be answering next week.
Yeah, so curious. Okay, so last question that I have for you here is, if you could swap and be a different tendency, which one would you pick?
Honestly, I wouldn't pick another one. I feel like being an upholder is like, it's so deeply ingrained in who I am. Like I can't imagine being any other way.
All the other ways seem rife with problems.
I don't know. It's just, I just cannot imagine. Like it's, from like when I was like a teenager doing my GCSEs, like I didn't need someone to check in on me. Like I was just doing it. Like I just it wasn't fun. I didn't have fun, but it got done. And I like being that dependable, reliable person. And I like to know that things are going to happen. And that's kind of comforting, I think.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Which is the most fun tendency then? Sorry, I lied. Another question.
The most fun. Is it a rebel? I know, I think that a rebel, I feel like that might be quite a stressful tendency to be sometimes.
Yeah, or destructive.
Or destructive. I wonder if there's like a lot of frustration there when you just can't get yourself to do something. So maybe questioner. Maybe questioner's the most fun because you've only got yourself to answer to.
I'm going to say you're right.
Okay. All right. Well done. You have more fun. But I get shit done.
No, I mean, I think with the upholder though, like, and you've articulated this really well, is you kind of get the best of both worlds. It's
really?
like,
the lack of fun?
Well, no, I mean, not.
There's satisfaction.
Yeah.
I'll say that there is satisfaction of going tick, 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 done.
Yeah, and there's follow through, both in being part of the world and connecting with others and what they expect of you, as well as what you expect of yourself. So maybe, fun's not the word, but maybe balance is.
Ooh, okay. I like that.
There's like it seems like a healthy balance between yourself and your obligation, and I mean that in a good way, like your service to others.
Yeah. Oh, nice. So should we hear what some of the other upholders in the Check Your Thread Patreon had to say?
Perfect. Let's do this. So Mel says, I'm an upholder. As long as I know what's expected of me, I do it willingly. In my sewing, if I'm given a brief, I complete the task to the best of my abilities. I follow a sewing pattern but can't hack it without clear instructions. I'm reliable because I do what's expected. I do go above and beyond if I know I'm going along the right track. If I'm helping someone or a company, I get anxious if the project or job is vague. What do you make of that?
Yes, we don't want the vague, but I also think that maybe Mel's a bit of an overachiever because I don't necessarily go above and beyond. I just do what I've been asked and pretty much nothing more. So I think that's another aspect where there's another element of Mel's personality kind of creeping in there a bit, I think.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Okay, next one. Janine says, I took the quiz and was not surprised to see I was an upholder. And quoting the upholder, they want to know what's expected of them and to meet those expectations. They thrive with routines, but may struggle with last-minute changes or when the rules are unclear. In my creative sewing life, this comes out in my super organization that I have, like my Trello board with all my current projects, past projects, details of each make, etc. It also shows up with me making and refining the same pattern over and over again until I'm happy with how it's turned out. I bet she always makes a 12.
Yes.
It also means that I'm a little hesitant to try new patterns I'm unsure of, and I really have to push myself to try it or learn a new skill. It also means I can get upset if I just can't make a pattern work no matter what I try. Like, it should work. I followed the instructions. Hence my struggle with scant instructions on vintage patterns. But on the whole, I think my upholder tendency is helpful in my sewing creative life because I tend to see projects to completion. I don't really have a pile of UFOs, unfinished objects.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Oh, I know, Janine, and I can totally see all of this. And I think that there's another aspect here of like the super organization. I do not relate to that. In terms of my physical space. So I wonder if there's like keeping your physical space and your belongings organized is something that comes from another area of her life, you know?
Right.
But Janine is a big vintage sewing pattern fan, so I feel for Janine and those. I remember like reading her making a coat from a vintage sewing pattern and it just said, make bound buttonholes in the usual way, and just being like, what? So I can feel for Janine with that.
Yeah.
I definitely can relate to the not too many unfinished objects laying around. Like I may have maybe 1 or 2 sewing projects on the go, but anything more than that makes me feel uncomfortable. So yeah, I can see that, Janine. Yep.
That's amazing.
Thank you so much. You've been brilliant. Thank you so much for questioning me and bearing your tendency.
I love that. Oh, can I add one thing?
Of course.
Just the thought as we go about this. It's a quote. I should find the source, but it's this quote that I love, that it's all models are wrong, some are useful.
Oh, okay.
And I think this has been a very useful one to explore how we craft and go about the world.
Yeah, love it. Thank you so much, Kim.
Thank you.
I'm so happy that we're talking today. It came at just the right time, as always.
Awesome. I feel like if I spoke to you every week, though, it'd still be the right time.
There's always something, but like specifically now, I feel like it's such great timing. I'm so happy to chat today.
Absolutely. Right. Okay. So very briefly, can you just remind us who you are, where you are, and what fills your days?
Right. So I'm Lise. I am Miss Tashley on Instagram and now also the Craft Camp. And I am a sewist and knitter primarily as a crafter, but I mostly love to get other crafters together. So I really love the social aspect of sewing. Outside of my, crafting life, I am a mom and I am a stay-at-home mom, so I don't have a job outside of the home in that sense. So I'm very lucky. And between kids, chores, I dedicate a large part of my life to crafting.
Awesome. And where are you?
I'm in Basel, Switzerland.
Amazing. Right. Okay. So when or where did you first hear about the Four Tendencies?
So while I love any kind of good pop culture or psychology, I had not come across this until you mentioned it to me. Not in preparation of this episode, you had sent me the link to the test a while ago. And I love, like, when I was growing up, the teen magazines with the horoscope and the quizzes. I love any kind of quiz like that. And
Same. Yes.
yeah, a little bit of, pop psychology. I'm on board. Any good cult, I'm there for it. And it definitely has like slight culty vibes. Anyway, so I took the test right away. And while I do think it would be interesting if it showed you like a percentage of which tendency you have, because I definitely had some questionnaire answers too. Yeah, I landed straight in the rebel, category the first time I took it, and now when I retook it in preparation of this episode.
Were you surprised that you came out as a rebel?
No, not at all. Um, I do think it resonates very much with me. I do think if we like step back a bit and not just, for my personal tendency, some criticism I read online is saying like we can't just categorize everyone into four tendencies, that's not just how we are. But I see it more of it's called tendency. That is sort of that's what your inner child wants to do or wants to be. And that definitely resonates. That said, most of us listening and us talking here, we're all grown-ups. So I do think the big takeaway is not just it resonates, but also we need to overcome certain things because we're all grown up that need to function in society. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, absolutely. And also, like, it's just one little aspect of your personality. It's not your whole, it's not one of those like Enneagrams or whatever where it's trying to describe your whole personhood. This is just one aspect, isn't it? Like how you respond to expectation. And also, this is the fourth recording that I've been doing for this episode. And what is becoming so clear is that they show up for different people in different ways. There's other aspects of people's personalities or, social structure or background that also contributes very much to how those things are manifesting. It was really interesting that one of the other upholders talked about being very, very organized, where I am not. So it just shows that different people have got different interpretations and it's all just a bit of fun ultimately.
Right. And I do think that the premise or the, central question, how do we respond to expectations, is an interesting question to ask yourself. Never mind if you answer it by taking this test and seeing which, tendency resonates with you more, or if you just by yourself try and answer that question. I do think that's interesting and will show you things about yourself and maybe show some areas where you could also improve upon to make life easier for yourself or those around you.
Absolutely. I just don't think it's ever going to be a bad idea to spend some time trying to work out, learn more about yourself. That's never going to be a waste of time.
Right. I love a good bit of self-improvement, and as you say, it's also like in a fun way. I think I haven't read the book, but it's very like conversational. It's not trying to be like true psychology, it will not replace that. But just like a horoscope where you resonate with certain parts, or it like you said, it manifests in different ways in your life. I think this has some similarities, and I definitely thought it was fun. And just like, reading through the results, like, oh, yeah, that's totally me. Oh, gosh, that's me too. It's just fun,
Absolutely. So let's just get into a little bit more about what the attributes of a rebel are, in case some of our listeners then feel that they are things that they can resonate with also. So rebels resist both outer and inner expectations. They put a high value on freedom, choice, self-expression, and authenticity. If someone asks or tells them to do something, they're likely to resist, and because of that, they may be easy to manipulate by using their spirit of resistance, like I'll show you, or watch me, or you can't make me. Rebels may choose to act out of love, a sense of mission, or a belief in a cause. They have trouble telling themselves what to do, even when it's something they want to do. Rebels may love to meet a challenge in their own way, in their own time. Rebels don't respond well to supervision, advice, directions, or routines, schedules, or doing repetitive tasks. If they're in a long-term relationship, in work or romance, their partner is probably an obliger. So how accurate do you feel those parts are for you?
When you launched into the definition or the attributes, I had to like take a breath, hold my breath, because I definitely do feel in the, categories of the four tendencies. This is both the worst and the best one.
Okay, we'll make that judgment later on. But which ones of those aspects kind of do you resonate with the most?
I think all of them 100%, 150%, except I don't know if my husband is a obliger or maybe a upholder or possibly has a bit of rebel tendencies.
Okay, you're gonna have to get him to do the
In
quiz.
general, I do think maybe it's not like we're all one thing. You know what I mean? We're probably all on a spectrum, but the rebel resonates with me 100%. Although I have to say that is if I listen to my inner child. In real life, I do not act like a rebel all the time because otherwise I could not function in society, be a mother, etc. But
Yes.
yes, if I would listen to my inner child, the rebel is strong, maybe stronger than in others.
Yeah. So it's not like you can't make me take my kids to school. Oh wait, yeah, you
Right,
can,
right.
because there's consequences in the real world.
Yeah, but yeah, if I like, I think we all have that inner child still, and maybe the upholders, etc., have, overcome that more. But your inner child is probably also has some rebel and questioner, etc., but is probably already a bit of an upholder, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
So
for
I
sure.
think that's our tendency. And yeah, I do think like in real life, we have to live the other aspects as well, to have a well-rounded life, basically. But yeah, I do think it resonates strongly. Can I just ask? I know this isn't like the interview with you, but did you feel like this or not as strongly?
Yes, yeah, almost all of them. I was like, yep,
Hmm.
yep. There's a couple of aspects that don't resonate with me quite as much. Like I don't love repetition as much as an upholder is meant to.
Mm.
I don't really love a strict routine. Like I like some variety. As I was saying, I'm not super tidy, but I don't know that is necessarily part of being an upholder. Oh yeah, it also said with upholders that when plans change, that can kind of scramble them a little bit. But
Mm.
I'm actually not too bad when plans change. I can be like, okay,
Yeah.
right, well, let's just create a new plan. It doesn't throw me for a loop. But a lot of the other stuff, like, yep.
Yeah, I think similarly for me, there are a couple of things in my description of my, type that don't quite fit. For example, so a standing challenge. I should not want to do a challenge
Yeah.
and have those limitations. And I was thinking about it. If I subscribe to this, philosophy and I'm like, okay, but I'm a rebel, then why am I doing this? I think it would be the sense of community. I identify as a person who likes a sense of community. And I think maybe that is then why I can make the commitment to the rules.
Absolutely. It's like that part trumps the part about not enjoying challenges. It's like the
Right.
bit that sees yourself as, a supportive member of the sewing community or the crafting community. That bit is more prominent for you.
And similarly, I read in the analysis when I took the quiz that, yeah, to get a rebel to do things, you need to do this and that. And I was also thinking that you need to appeal to their sense of identity as opposed to like the need to do something. And I was like, but that's kind of assuming we're all still 14 and we just do
Yes.
what we want. So even if you have rebel tendencies, I think most of us had to, learn to also function otherwise. We do also have a rational brain and not just these tendencies. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes you just have to do the thing whether you
Right.
want to or not.
You may
Exactly.
be not enjoying it, but I'm not thinking that the upholders enjoy it all that much either. They just get it done. You know what I mean?
Exactly, completely. Right, okay, so how do you feel about being a rebel? So, what are the best and most annoying aspects of being a rebel?
Oh my gosh, I feel like it could also be called the toddler or the child or something, the petulant child, because obviously I think it's the best because the rebels will make sure they have a good life and do what they want as opposed to following the rules. I think all the other tendencies would say it's the worst because people cannot rely on us. We just do what we want. We don't follow the rules. The things that make our well-being, good makes maybe the well-being of others worse. But again, this would be if we would like relentlessly follow our tendencies and keep it in check somewhat.
Absolutely.
So yeah, but I think it's the best one for like self-care and things like that. But you may set yourself up for future failure because you just do what you want and maybe you didn't pay your bill, things like that. So now you have a late fee, but then you deal with that. So you may hurt some around you if you just lived according to that tendency, but you also sometimes have to reap what you sow, and so that's just a consequence of it.
Interesting. So when it comes to your sewing and creative life, in what ways do you think that your tendency shows itself?
Oh, such an easy answer. Answer one, I actually have exhibit A here is works in progress.
Right. Okay.
Specifically, these are gifts.
Right.
Nothing in me wants to finish these, even though I do with my mind. Like they're gifts for people I love. I want to make them. They didn't tell me to make this. I want to make it. And still it's sitting here and sitting here because I have to kind of do it. And now I don't want to. So yeah, I have to overcome my inner rebel and just get it done.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing. Works in progress are building up, and gifts and IOUs are not a good idea. And the other big exhibit, which is not right here on camera, is my stash. Because you plan things and you just go with your like drive of like, oh my gosh, I have this project in mind. It's 11 p.m. Let me just shop for fabric online, and then your regular life takes over. You don't have time with it, and you don't have that discipline that maybe the upholder or even obliger has to like, okay, I bought this, I need to work with it now. The rebel is just like new day, new project, new idea, I'm doing whatever I want. And so yeah, if you just give in to that tendency, you may end up in a very concrete matter with a very large stash.
Okay. Okay. So that's kind of, I guess, answered the in what ways does it hinder your creative life, but how does your tendency help your creative life?
I very rarely suffer from a lack of motivation to be creative because I just do what I want. If I don't want to continue a project or I think the twirling has run its course, I don't actually want to make the main garment, then that's just how it's going to go. If I don't feel like sewing, now I'm knitting, fine. I rarely have a point where I'm just like, there's no creativity for either craft or no project at all. So I think because of that, it's a benefit. But yeah, the works in progress, I think that negative aspect may still. I'm a little bit jealous of the upholders or obligers. I think those would be the ones that get their works in progress done, even if they don't feel like it before they start the next thing. So I'm
Yeah, but
aspiring
we're probably
to
having
be a
less
bit more like that.
fun, aren't we, though?
Yeah,
We're
but you
probably
have
having
the
less
stuff
fun than
made
you.
then and not like the weight of it, like, or it's
Right. So you feel
standing
the
there.
weight.
So at times. So yeah, this basket of whips I showed you, it's been standing there for a while. And so when I just abandon it for a minute and I go to something else, it's all hanky dory. I'm having fun, but then it's still there and it's still there. And eventually it starts getting heavy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Interesting. Okay, well, this leads on to if you could swap and be a different tendency, what would you pick?
I wouldn't swap. All
Good.
negativities aside. So I thought about these questions because I had them to prepare and I didn't like, type a long answer, but I thought about them. And this one was such a clear, like, I would not swap. I think it's the best tendency for self-care, for not burning out. It's not the best for functioning in our society. I do know that Gretchen is an upholder and she thinks that's the best one, and it's probably true. But, anyways, it's probably easier to function in this society as an adult if you're naturally a bit more upholder. But I think, yeah, the rebel is probably going to lead, like, easily going to lead a more satisfied life in the sense that they will take care of themselves. But they may run into trouble like late fees and things like that.
I always, you are just such a fun and joyful person. And I feel like, yeah, if you were a different tendency that, yeah, it wouldn't resonate as much when I think of you, So So when I decided to make this episode, I put up a little prompt on the Check Your Thread Patreon. So we've had a couple of rebels respond. So let me just read you what they've written. And then you can let me know if those things resonate with you or if you feel that that's a different take on it than you experience, okay?
Love it.
All right, so Beth says, I took this quiz a few years ago and got rebel. I was surprised at the time, but in retrospect, it makes a lot of sense. It's hard to stick with habits or goals when I just want to do what I want to do in the moment. But I'm also comfortable telling people no. Maybe surprisingly, I don't cut corners with sewing, but I will also only do it if I'm in the mood. What are your thoughts?
I love it. I'm just letting it ring back a bit. Like, love it so much. I do think a lot of us need to function in society. We may not be aware of our inner rebel anymore. And I do think it's good to get in touch with that. I do think that it doesn't exclude some things from other tendencies, such as the perfectionism.
But I don't think that perfectionism is associated with any one tendency. I think that's a separate characteristic, to be honest.
Right. And yeah, as you know, that resonates with me too. And I don't think it would as much, like, let's say I was working as a seamstress and now I have to do things and do it correctly. I just, I do it because I want to, not because I have to.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So we hear from Jackie as well. Jackie says, hi, I'm a rebel. I like to do my own thing. So love being an upcycler working on random projects. I only rarely use a pattern as a guide, then add my own twist to it. If something is mainstream, I'm not interested and I don't like rules, which did make a 9-to-5 job hard work. So this is quite a different interpretation of being a rebel, isn't it? This is like, I'm just not even going to really use a pattern. I'm going to then spin it. And if it's something that's on trend, not interested. That's quite different, isn't it? So how you experience being a rebel.
This is like the queen of rebels or something, like the hardcore level. Because,
Hail Jackie.
Yeah, I'm a rebel, but I'm also like super timid and scared of things. So yeah, I do a million twirls, never go off pattern, comfortable with grading, now starting to make bigger pattern changes, but like step by step, please, And I think that may be like the ultimate rebel. Like there are no restrictions, but there are also no guidelines. Like I'm just going in uncharted waters. So yeah. Maybe like rebel to the max. I'm not that rebellious myself.
We've found your limits. This is fascinating. Okay, amazing. Thank you so much, Lisa, for sharing your amazing insights. And thank you to all my guests and all the patrons for participating in this really super fun episode. Thank you so much.
This was so much fun. I can't wait to hear the others.
Yay.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed this episode and are left feeling inspired. For more info about the podcast, including show notes for this and every episode, head to checkyourthread.com. I'd love to hear from you, so if you have any comments, questions, or ideas for future episodes, please get in touch by emailing zoe@checkyourthread.com or find me on Instagram @checkyourthread. Massive thanks to Patrick Potter for production support, to Sylvia Seller for the awesome logo design, and to Simon at Palm Skin Productions for the music. This ad-free podcast would not be possible without listener support, so if you feel you are able, please consider signing up to the Check Your Thread Patreon. For the equivalent of buying me a coffee each month, you'll be making it possible to continue producing regular episodes. Links can be found in the show notes and on the website checkyourthread.com. I hope you'll listen again next week. Until then, take care. Bye!